I have to ask if either or both of you have a favorite paratext. So as a fan of the show, was there any of these collateral things that really are fun for you, or ones that maybe you hate and wish didn't exist in some way?
Well, can I just say that The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer is really quite remarkable. And I will say, having taught Twin Peaks, I spent a full semester teaching the worlds of Twin Peaks last spring, which was really trippy given the pandemic beginning. Anyway, the students were really moved by hearing the story of Laura Palmer, from the character, because in the original show, she's not there in the same sense. So having that subjectivity of Laura Palmer explored in Jennifer Lynch's book, I think is really amazing. And I think it's also interesting. Well, first, it's interesting that that book remediates something that's in the show. So the diary is an object that's important in the plot of the original show, but then it's remediated into a real book that Jennifer Lynch wrote. So a really interesting example of paratextuality in that sense. But also then Sheryl Lee sort of took the book on the road and did audio recordings and performances of the diary of Laura Palmer. And I just think that's so interesting because it underscores how Sheryl Lee really connected with the subjectivity of Laura Palmer. And yeah, so I think for me, that's certainly one of them. I love them all. They're all fascinating and humorous and insightful and weird. But I don't know about you, Will, if there's a different one that you would point to. And we both love Fire Walk with Me. So I would, yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say is Fire Walk with Me. The diary is fascinating. I find the diary fascinating for all of the reasons Julie just explained. I don't know that there's anything that I hate. Marie, you had asked, is there anything that I hate? There are certain episodes of Twin Peaks in the second half of the second season that I think are terrible. I think a lot of Twin Peaks fans share that feeling that there's some unevenness in the second season. But even when I think the show or the various paratexts fail, I still think it's part of something larger that's interesting. And I think the diary is really illuminating. And if I had to pick one, text or paratext, it would be Fire Walk with Me. I think that film is just a total knockout. And I think it does a lot of the same things that Julie just described that the diary does in terms of really kind of anchoring Twin Peaks around Laura Palmer as the nucleus of meaning. That even when she's absent in the show, when you read the diary and then when you see the film, there's almost a way you can kind of retroactively read her presence through the show. And I think Sheryl Lee's performance is just, I think it's one of the great performances. Yeah, actually, I would say my interest in Twin Peaks was probably solidified when I saw Fire Walk. And then I just can't see the show without seeing Fire Walk in there somewhere.
It's actually fascinating because I think that really explains maybe why the focus of the book was these paratexts in part, right? Mm-hmm. If that impact was so great for you. Thank you both for answering that question. So something else I'm always curious about, especially with these really short books, they're, as I said before, about 30,000 words, is the collaboration between co-authors, the writing process. I'd love to hear, I think you two are a great team. And so you explained a little bit how you came to work on the book together, but what was that process like? And what were the positive aspects of the collaboration? Were there any challenges? Yeah.
I can start that one. I can definitely say without reservation, it was a totally positive experience. It's one of the most fun experiences I've had as an academic, partly because the team at Wayne State is such a pleasure to work with, but also because Julie is such an amazing collaborator. So one of the things that we both thought this only kind of became apparent to us when we finished the book. One of the things we thought was so interesting about working together is that we both come at Twin Peaks from two different generations of Twin Peaks viewership or Twin Peaks experience. Julie watched the show when it was on originally in the 90s, and was interested in it from the beginning. I came to the show retroactively. I saw it probably about 20 years after it had been on the air. And I think, in the first year of my PhD program, and I saw it on a streaming service. This was in the early days of streaming. It was like just before Netflix. And I was aware of the show as a cult classic. So unlike Julie, who came to the show when it was pitched to the public as this, mega hit that was going to change television, and then it got canceled and sort of had this underground appeal after that. I was coming to it as, oh, this is this kind of, cool show that, does really weird things on television. And so I was kind of coming at it through a slightly different lens. So it was interesting to me to try to imagine what it must have been like in 1990 to watch it when, everybody was talking about cherry pie around the water cooler. And I don't know, I just became obsessed kind of with trying to reconstruct that moment of reception. So I actually wound up collecting a lot of magazines and so forth that I actually used as primary sources in the first chapter of the book, to try to imagine, what that was like to be kind of immersed in Twin Peaks when it was mainstream rather than a kind of more cultish show. So that was really beneficial, is kind of those two optics moving back and forth between watching it when it was on, remembering it in the moment, and then coming at it, after it had developed this afterlife. Julie, do you want to?
Yeah. So that's all great. I feel like the process was extremely organic for us. And, we did a little bit of everything. I mean, in terms of our work style, we were fortunate to be living in the same city. So we would often literally sit at one of our dining room tables and write together. So we did that for parts of the book, but then for other parts of the book, one of us took the lead, and then we would, email sections to the other person and provide feedback. So it was just a really organic and very enjoyable experience. And, just a couple of other things on this topic, I learned so much from Will working with him. We share a lot of the same interests, but we bring some different insights to the material. And that was just so rewarding and exciting to be discovering and rediscovering this material as a writing team. So it was just a ton of fun. And also because Twin Peaks is such a weird space to inhabit. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I had a lot of nightmares, immersing myself in the show and the paratexts, and you start to see the excessive weirdness in everyday life. And having somebody to talk to about that, who is, in an analogous way invested and understands was really, was great. So, and then finally, we were super fortunate to be able to tour the Twin Peaks landscape together. So SEMS was in Seattle in 2019. So we were able to take a side trip to Snoqualmie, Washington, and North Bend and Fall City. And that was a really special experience. We became friendly with the then owner of the Double R Diner, which was, called in real life Tweed's Cafe. And he actually let us use a photo of the mural that was on the back of his restaurant for our cover, which is my virtual background here. So, this was, kind of, our life, as well as our work in that sense. And it was really, it was a great experience. And I'm very deeply grateful to have been able to work with Will on the project.
Thank you.